Hello, it's Karen Richardson, and I know it's been a really long time since I've done a video, but this is too important not to share. In a nutshell, just before Christmas, it was the end of November, and I had just come back from a long weekend holiday in Cornwall, and it was beautiful. And literally 20 minutes from getting inside the door, my mum called me and my dad was having a stroke. Now, luckily, as you can probably tell from my background, and this is genuinely my background, this is the little log cabin in the bottom of my parents' garden, because we actually moved in with my parents last year to save on rising costs and to help them because obviously they're getting older. And to really just share that burden of, the incredible financial pressure we're all put under at the moment. And I know you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I digress. I want to share this with you because, just to give you upfront, within 2 hours of me treating my dad, he was up walking around as if nothing had happened. And this stroke, it was like a mini stroke. It wasn't probably a full stroke, but he lost complete use of his left arm. He lost complete use of his leg on the left-hand side, and he felt his face starting to go. It was beginning to tingle, as he said. So very calmly, I just kind of said, right, what do I need to do, to myself? And it was like, DMSO, right. Okay, get the DMSO out. Now, if you haven't heard of DMSO, honestly, you should have some of this stuff in your cupboard. It sounds like a scary chemical. It's actually a very natural product from trees, and it's a byproduct of the paper industry. And it's actually what they extract from the wood to turn paper into paper. It's what makes wood stiff and trees stiff. And they extract that. So obviously your paper is flexible. And it's a natural, very natural byproduct. And it was used commonplace at one time within medical situations for many, many different things. It's great for pain relief, for all kinds of things. But I'm not going to go into those right now because what we have discovered is it's a very effective anticoagulant for blood. And obviously with stroke being somewhat of a buzzword at this moment in time, and just for the record, no, my dad hasn't had that medical procedure. He like us is aware of what is happening in the world, so he has chosen not to have it, along with my mum and most of my family. So he has always had this trouble with sticky blood, shall we say. He's had pulmonary embolisms before, and he's had stroke before. We obviously don't really know why. And for the longest time, we had got him off his blood thinners, and he was regularly rubbing DMSO into his skin because DMSO is a transdermal, and DMSO stands for dimethyl sulfur oxide, and it's a sulfur-based product. But he was rubbing it into his skin, and we found out completely by accident that this stuff actually thins his blood, because the first time he started using it, because it's very good for arthritic joints, and he was rubbing it into my mum's shoulders because she has arthritic shoulders, and he was on his blood thinners at that time, and this is going back a couple of years now, and he got a nosebleed, and we were like, oh wow, this stuff thins your blood. And over time, he's put it on sort of the thinner areas, where the veins run close to the surface. So your inner arm's a good place to put it on, back of your hand, and if you do have arthritis or places where you're experiencing pain or trauma, it's really good to rub this stuff in. But there are things you should know about it. For example, it will carry anything through the skin. So even fibers off your clothes. So this is why you should always let it be touch dry before you dress yourself afterwards. And I want to put that in as a little disclaimer there. But he had actually stopped doing it, and he wasn't on his blood thinners. He'd stopped taking his DMSO, and he was also regularly taking vitamin E, which also helps with blood consistency as well, and heart issues. It's well worth looking into vitamin E for these things as well. And for whatever reason, he had stopped taking it. I think we'd had such a chaotic year with us moving into the house. We both had massive clear outs to make space. And I think it just got out of the habit of doing it. So anyway, we'd just got back from holiday and Mum comes into the kitchen. Oh, Dad's having a stroke. And I was like, what? I was really like, wow, how's this happening? So the first thing I did was I got the DMSO. I dabbed it on his temples because at your temples, there is like a join in your skull. So it's a good place to put something if you want it to get through that brain barrier really quickly. And I put it on his neck where his main, arteries and veins would be. And I rubbed some on his hands and on his arms as well. And we did that a couple of times while he was sat there. And we'd already called the paramedics at this point because we weren't going to take any chances. Although these days we feel it's a risk even to go into hospital when you're elderly, don't we? But we did ring the paramedics just to be on the safe side. But they didn't turn up for 2 hours. So if that stroke had continued, it probably would have given him permanent damage. The next thing, what should I do now? Oh, yes, I've got a cold laser device. And this is it's like a big chunky watch, and it goes on your wrist, but the face part, if you like, sits on the inner part of your wrist, again, where your veins are. And it actually flashes lasers. But my dad was actually using this prior to having blood tests because it helps with blood pressure, blood sugar, blood density, and it basically cleans your blood. So, excellent device to have. They're not cheap. And I can pop a link if you're interested in looking at them. But so we put this on his wrist as well. And then little by little, he started saying, oh, I can move my fingers. My fingers are moving. And you could tell he'd gone very pale. He was obviously very concerned. We all were, very worried. But he was like, oh, I can move my fingers. And then then his toes. And he was like, look, I can lift my arm. I can lift my arm. And this was all happening very gradually over, the next hour or so after this. And by the time the paramedics arrived, which was 2 hours after the initial phone call and, probably about 1 hour, 50 minutes or whatever after I started with the treatment. And he was up walking around. He was just saying, look, I'm fine. I can move. And the paramedics, there's basically nothing wrong with him by the time they arrived, but they did all the tests and he did have slightly elevated blood pressure, which is probably to be expected because it's a stressful thing, isn't it? Let's be honest. So they did take him in for observation for a few hours into the hospital. And I didn't really want him to go, but we thought, well, probably a good idea to get it checked out and make sure there's no lingering blood clots anywhere. So anyway, he went in. This was probably around 10 o'clock in the evening, and then got a phone call at 4 o'clock to come in AM in the morning to come and pick him up, and they couldn't find anything wrong with him. Nothing. It completely worked. It completely dissolved the blood clot, and that's what the power of this substance DMSO is. That's what it can do. That's what it does, amongst other things. Now, moving forward, this is such an important substance for you to know about. And rather than me trying to explain it all here in one video, which could go on for hours, over the next week or so, I intend to put together a very detailed blog post with what it does, how it works, how you can make it up, how you utilize it, and how you can treat different things for it. So it's going to take me a little while to accumulate that information and put it all into one place for you. But that is my intention, and I will be sending that out for you. But I wanted to share this story really now. I mean, I know it's been a couple of months since it's happened, but it's taken us a little while to just kind of, you know, go, wow, yeah, that happened. And, you know, it was a wonderful confirmation for me. As I'm not an expert, I'm not a professional healthcare person. But the fact that over this last 3 years, I have done non-stop research into natural healing and really the hidden stuff, because this stuff's been hidden as well. It's been, you know, they're trying to eradicate knowledge about it, but it's coming back to the fore again. And, you know, I follow a lady called Amanda Vollmer who talks about this a lot. And that's where I initially heard about it from and started investigating and digging and using it. Really mainly on my parents, because I don't have a huge amount wrong with me. My husband, he occasionally gets flare-ups from his ankylosing spondylitis, and apply it to him then. But we are generally starting to use it more day to day because it is just so good for you. So when that blog is ready, I shall do an announcement and I shall share it with everyone. And I would be grateful if you share it far and wide as well, because people need to know about this. So anyway, I hope I haven't rambled on too long. I just want to say thank you for tuning in and listening to me. And like I say, I'm going to get to work and get that information out to you ASAP. But I really just wanted to give you this very quick heads up as to how powerful it is. If you want a reference of where to buy it in the UK, I buy it from Regency Organics. .co.uk, I think it is, or it might be .com, I can't remember. I think it's .co.uk, Regency Organics, that's where I buy mine from. You want to avoid cheap Chinese imitation. Generally, the best stuff comes from America. So, you know, if you are in America, then that's really good news for you. You should be able to source it, I think, with an internet search. So that's all from me today, and send you my love. And it's great actually to be back talking to you. Take care. Bye-bye.